Welcome to the Get Unhooked podcast with Jason Coombs, where experience meets insight. Jason Coombs, nationally recognized speaker, best-selling author, and founder of Brickhouse Recovery, shares hard-earned lessons on resilience, leadership, addiction, and mental health. No filters, no fluff, just real stories, practical wisdom, and a deeper look at what it takes to grow, lead, and keep moving forward. Now here's your host, Jason Coombs.
I want to also speak to the process that I found to help us to kind of like rise above the forest and the trees so that we can see the forest. So rise above it and look out across the top of where we're going. And a lot of that work is mindset work, because when we work on the mindset and the approach on any given day, and we're breathing positivity into our thoughts and set the stage for self-love, empathy, and strength, we tend to do a lot better when interacting and communicating with our loved ones, especially our addicted loved ones. And so there are a couple of things going on in my mind regarding some resources that I'm excited about, and this is one of them. This book, which I recommend. I'm going to be a guest on Dan's show, but those of you that have been with me for a little while and coming to this coaching call may remember a couple of episodes where I've talked about the miracle morning. So Hal Elrod wrote the foreword to this book. Dan was the individual who introduced me to Hal's work and the miracle morning. And to give a little context of why it's meaningful to me, is 2 years ago, in April, so a little over 2 years ago, my wife called me at 3:30 in the morning after just doing a routine checkup at the hospital, and they had found some pretty large masses, and they ended up being stage 3C ovarian cancer. And this is the kind of cancer that can't just cut out and have great outcomes. What you can do is treat it and try to extend life and extend quality of life, and we're in a good space today with it. So I'm happy to report that today is a great day for my wife. The reality is that when we found out we had to move down to Salt Lake City, we got into Huntsman, and she was getting treated at Huntsman for the summer of 2023. And during that summer, I'll be honest, I slipped into a rut, and that rut was a mental depressed state. I couldn't find joy in anything, it felt like. I think a lot of that had to do with stress. A lot of that had to do with being tossed into being the point of coordinating my twins' days, because it's summer and they don't have school. We're not around with their friends. And so it's like, okay, from the morning throughout the day, I got to think of things that I hadn't been thinking about. Like, my wife was always the one that would make sure they got fed, for example. Make sure that there's food in the fridge and that there's food in the cupboards. But anytime that I'm with them, it's like, hey, where do you guys want to go eat? And then we go out and we get it, because I just have never really loved cooking or anything like that. And so I would wake up stressful, like, okay, I gotta figure out what to feed my kids. And you would think just putting out some cereal would be easy or something like that. But my both kids have like really, really picky, and it's beyond picky. My daughter has some struggles with her relationship with food. So it was a negotiation first thing in the morning, and I just fell into a rut because I wasn't exercising like I wanted to. I wasn't eating the way I wanted to. I still was, running a company, and I wasn't close. And so luckily I have an amazing team that was able to carry some of that. But my point is I was feeling like I was in a rut. When Dan called me to check in, see how I was doing, see how my wife is doing, I just shared that I wasn't, it was hard, and we were getting through it. but I was struggling with finding happiness or purpose in it. And that's when he introduced me to Miracle Morning. And I began to practice the Miracle Morning principles. If y'all aren't familiar with what those tenets are, this is a man I'm talking about, the author of Miracle Morning, that is Hal Elrod. And he also has a documentary on Amazon Prime called Miracle Morning. And the six tenets he calls are the lifesavers, and they start with the acronym SAVERS. And so they're SAVER. So the lifesavers start every morning with 10 minutes of each of these items. So it's 10 minutes of silence. The A is affirmations, 10 minutes of affirmations, 10 minutes visioning, 10 minutes of exercise, 10 minutes of reading, and 10 minutes of scribing or journaling. So that's the, yeah. So this lifesavers. And, he's not the first one to come up with the effectiveness of all of those things. But I think what his framework did was take all of them and make it doable to kick it off in 1 hour, like bring it all together in 1 hour. And I put that to the test, and I felt like I was able to not only climb out of the rut, but I felt like I was feeling optimistic and hopeful again. And what was even more interesting to me was that about 2 weeks later, I got invited to be a facilitator at a company's corporate retreat on mental wellness. And had they asked me 2 weeks prior, I would have been like, I don't think I have anything to offer, because you can't really transmit something you don't have. And that at that time, I didn't feel like I had anything to offer anyone. And so this prepared me for that experience. And not only that, but I have tried to incorporate it every single day. And I think the biggest thing is not necessarily feeling like you have to do those in order or do them rigidly for 10 minutes. The idea is that if you can do a few of those, if you can do all of them every morning, great. But if you can do a few of those or one of those every morning, it does get your mind set in the right place to where you feel the strength and you feel peace of mind and you feel like you're able to approach your loved one with confidence and with clarity, so you can draw and recall the things that you're learning in the courses that those of you are taking, that you can recall the things you've learned on these calls and other literature that you read and studied. And that's where I think you really open up the channels of intuition and that personal revelation and recall. So when I talk specifically, I want to zero in on the A, which is after silence, doing some affirmations. Affirmations I thought were kind of woohoo, just fluff type stuff. And then I learned in early recovery how powerful they were. I took this course that was called the Ideal Life Vision course. And Ann Webb puts those courses on, and she put a little retreat on at her home in Salt Lake City, and she invited me to be I was like scholarshiped in, because at that time I was making $10 an hour. I didn't have much to my name, but I was back in school, and I was making a life for myself, co-creating a life for myself with my higher power. And a big part of that retreat was she would give us a prompt, and she would say, okay, of the 4 areas in your life, from the physical, the spiritual, the emotional, relationships, she might have had a couple other categories. She said, I want you to focus on writing out affirmations in first person. So it's saying, and present tones, not I will feel good or I felt good, but I feel good, shedding. Yeah, I feel good as I shed pounds of unwanted weight. So everything is in a positive context. I feel connected to my partner, and at that point, I didn't have a partner, and so it was a process of manifesting, but also visioning what life would feel like once I did find a partner. And what was crazy about this experience, and well, let me tell you, and then I'll circle back to what was crazy about it. So you go through, and you take 30 to 45 minutes just writing in present tense, using positive language about how good it feels to envision your ideal life in that category. So I'd write for 45 minutes on my relationships, and I'd go through my relationship with my future significant other, my relationship with my parents, my relationship with my birth son, and my relationship with my coworkers, and the relationship with myself, and the relationship with God. And I would just, spend time in those relationships thinking about those in present tense. And then you record yourself saying those things, and then you listen to it every day. And she had a little angle of it where when you lay a Baroque classical musical soundtrack behind it, that something with the beta or theta waves of that frequency of music drives it deeper into your subconscious mind. And apparently there's some science to that. I haven't proven that, and I haven't researched that, but I can tell you this, that the crazy thing is as I began this process of affirmations and listening to them every day, I met my wife 3 weeks later, and I'm not kidding. Like it was almost too blatant and too obvious to like think it was real. I was like, no way, this stuff doesn't happen to me. Like that's just like what happens in books. That's what happens in movies. You know what I mean? And it was crazy that it actually did happen to me. And then I recognized that instead of having to work off my weight, because I was at 275 pounds, because I gained 90 pounds after I was sober, rather than working off my weight, I would listen to the affirmations of my own voice saying how good I feel, stretching my body for 5 minutes every morning, how good I feel nourishing my body with fuel that gives me energy, and how good I feel going to bed at a reasonable hour and waking up early and taking on the day, and how much more clear I think, and all of the things like my ideal life would look like. And I don't remember having to like go on a crazy diet where it was like, okay, I need to shed all this weight. And so you just work. And it's like hard. But it just kind of like, my body just like released it, because my mind was accepting of this new vision of who I am and who I was becoming. And it was like my body just began to align, and it released the weight. I wasn't, and a big part of that is that I wasn't fueling it with things that I normally would. I would be thinking about the recall and the reminder of how good I feel nourishing my body with fuel that makes me feel good. And so those experiences in my early recovery made a huge difference. Why is that important when it comes to the situation or the circumstances that each of you face? Some of you have addicted loved ones who are active in their addiction. Some of you have loved ones who are in early sobriety. Some of you might be, have addicted loved ones who are further along in their recovery, and some may have addicted loved ones who have since passed, like a parent or a spouse or whatnot. And so kind of rewriting the narrative of our brain, of the narrative that we tell ourselves on a daily basis is a very powerful tool. Probably one of the most powerful reasons why I think a daily inventory works. It's because when we are taking a good pulse on what our liabilities are and what our assets are, we begin to affirm those assets and claim those assets and become those assets. And we let go of the identity of attaching to those defects of character or those liabilities. So when I was working on my affirmations 2 years ago, kind of revisiting a lot of this, I wish I would have had this book, to be honest. It talks about creating affirmations for every day of the week. So 7 affirmations for 7 days. And the first affirmation, I'm just going to read through what these affirmations are, and then you could go back and write on this after this call. Starting the week on Sunday rather than starting the week on Monday. Rather than Sunday being the end of a weekend, think of Sunday as your creation day. A creation day where you're going to co-create with your maker, your creator, your higher power, or your relationship with the universe, and be intentional about setting up the week that's coming. And so I am a creator is the first affirmation to be on a Sunday. On Monday, I am intentional. And this is I think, you could go into sub-affirmations and a lot of these. Intentional about what? And then you can get into work, or I'm intentional in being empathetic and understanding with my addicted loved one. I'm intentional about setting boundaries and holding to those. I'm intentional about speaking with charity and clarity at the same time. And then on Tuesday, I am present. Being present is so valuable, especially when we struggle with anxiety, wondering what's going to happen if our addicted loved ones don't get sober or overdose, or being present and looking for what is good about right now. And then on Wednesday, this is about winning the day. So the first 3 are about winning the morning. I'm a creator. I am intentional. I am present. And then he's got a section for the next set. It's winning the day, which is about character and competence. So Wednesday is I am worthy. I'm worthy. Thursday, I am capable. And then Friday, I am compassionate. And then Saturday is winning the week. And this is I am a finisher. So this is oftentimes related to the fitness. Anyway, I thought you guys might like to go through some of these, some meta affirmations he talks about, which really I think is a great place to maybe pivot, is the meta affirmation of I am healing. I am healing. You can go into I am healing from A, I am healing from B, I am healing from C. 2 years ago, as I said, I wish I had this book, but I had begun the practice a little bit prior to that, where I put a Post-it note on my mirror, and the Post-it note said, "Love myself with a compliment." Because if you remember the quote in Unhooked, Dave Blanchard once asked me, "Jason, if I talked to you the way you talk to yourself, would we still be friends?" And that's a really, really good question to ask yourselves as well. If I talk to you the way you talk to yourself, about yourself, to yourself in the mirror, the commentary that you think about your your looks or your financial circumstances or your health or any of those areas of negative self-talk, that is sowing seeds of disunity between you and your divine self. And it effectively cuts you and I off from the sunlight of the spirit. And why it's important to have this sunlight of the spirit is everything I want to point you to is, and in myself, and when by myself, what the goal is, the ultimate goal isn't to see our addicted loved ones get sober, but rather see that as a result of us becoming a greater version of ourselves that has access to divine help and help in decision making, help in the words we choose to use, help in our interactions with our loved ones, but also help seeing where our other loved ones have needs that maybe we've been neglecting because we've been consumed or obsessing about the one that has been getting all of our attention. And so it's really, really a beautiful and powerful process to go through when you look at your own eyes in the mirror and you say some affirmations that you can believe and get behind. And over time, you begin to think more about self-love, self-respect, and less about self-condemnation, self-hatred, self-pity. I'm going to introduce you guys to a word. Some of you, this is review. The word is Genshai. And to answer your question, Tiff, it's Monday was I am a creator. She's like I am a co-creator with my higher power. But the word Genshai means never treat a person in a manner that would make them feel small, including yourself. This is a word that my mentor taught me and teaches in his book, Aspire, Discovering Your Purpose Through the Power of Words is his book. Again, Aspire. I highly recommend that book. And I mentioned it in, I think, the last chapter, or second to last chapter of Unhooked, before the appendices, or part 2 with my family stories. And Genshai embodies all that we're talking about. Affirmations, looking at someone and thinking about our interactions with them. And one example is if a beggar is on the cement, sitting there holding a sign asking for food or change. The practice of Genshai would be to squat down, kneel down, to be eyeball to eyeball, and to give him the change, or to give him the money, or to give him the gift card, versus just kind of like from top down, like tossing it down to him. That's a visual example of what Genshai means. So when I have a couple of friends who are quadriplegic and they're in wheelchairs, and I always now it's a habit, which I love because I don't have to think about it. But in the beginning, I used to have to think about it every time I'd see Chad Hymas or I'd see Nathan Ogden. I think about, okay, like squat down, get on my knees and talk to them while they're in the chair, instead of talking to them while I'm standing above them. It's treating people in a manner that would never make them feel small. And I think we could all do better at how we talk to others so that we don't treat them small, and we can hold boundaries, and we can practice these principles of living unhooked without treating people small or shaming them. The bigger challenge is that last part, including yourself, never treating yourself in a manner that makes you feel small. So what are some things that you recognize that you do that makes you feel small? What are some things that you say to yourself, think about yourself, One example is when someone compliments you, do you accept and receive the compliment with gratitude? Or is it easier to say, oh, no, I'm not that good, or no, you're great. It's all you, you know, or pass the compliment on to, your spouse. Sometimes I'll find myself doing that and be like, oh no, it's all Bryn. Like when people compliment my kids, your kids are so well behaved, Jason. They are just the best. I wish every kid in their class could behave and, follow directions like they do. And I find myself saying, that is all my wife. I got to give credit to her. And I think that's great. Like I'm building Bryn up. But the person that is expressing the gratitude for the compliment, what I really need to be doing is saying, thank you. I agree. I agree with you. They are amazing kids. And I accept and receive the compliment with immense gratitude. And Kevin Hall taught me that reaction, that response to any time we receive a compliment, to say, thank you. I accept and receive your kind words with immense gratitude. And it's different than inhaling the compliment and puffing up our egos. This is about validating the complimenter and letting them feel like their words were received. And it's validating ourselves that they saw something within us that is worthy of compliment. Instead of dismissing, discrediting, or disregarding the compliment, let's just accept and receive it, and then thank our higher power for the gift of whatever that asset is that someone sees. So right now in the work that I'm doing with family members is helping to lay a foundation upon which you're building a new approach and building a new communication style, a new paradigm, a new worldview and perspective. And as we build that, the tactics and the strategies and the motivational interviewing skills, those all come more naturally because your addicted loved one can sense disingenuine comments or insincere and inauthentic and non-genuine, disingenuous words or phrases, even though you might be saying the right things. If you're feeling the resentment underneath, or you're feeling afraid underneath, it can be sniffed out a mile away. It's just that sense that your loved one will know. And so getting yourselves in a place and getting myself in a place every day when I'm working with the addicted population is vital to make sure that I'm off the beach, physically, and I'm off the beach emotionally, and I've got my emotional raincoat on, which doesn't mean I am apathetic and totally isolated from my loved one because I'm afraid of being hurt or afraid of lashing out. It's different than that. The emotional raincoat is much more about feeling self-efficacy, that I can walk through difficult conversations. I can dance the dance, and I know when to step out and get off the dance floor. I know how to speak with clarity, and I know how to speak with charity, and I can feel good about my approach, regardless of what the outcome is. Because the reality is, you can do everything right, and many of you guys are, and still the outcome might not result in what you hope, at least right now. And so patience is a big piece of laying that foundation as well. So the future is bright and beautiful. I want you guys to have a wonderful week and practice living unhooked by starting the day, ending the day with affirmations. And I'm excited to hear some of your feedback about this book, Awakening Who I Am, from my brother, Dan McCormick. And with that, we will see you guys next week. Sure love you guys. See you later. I just want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this show. Thank you for your support. Thank you for sharing these episodes so that they can help others. This is one way that you can give back and pay it forward, is by just passing along this free information to others that are possibly in need. Share it on social media, share it with your loved ones and family members. And don't forget, you can access my book on Audible, as well as on Amazon or on my website. As well as you can find information about our services at Brickhouse Recovery at brickhouserecovery.com.